The ground beneath your feet is gone. Not slowly, instantly. And you don't float. Your muscles have been pushing upward against gravity your entire life. The moment gravity vanishes, that upward force has nothing to push against. Your own body launches you skyward at roughly 1 meter per second. You hit 2.5 meters of height before your brain even registers what happened. That's the first second. What happens in seconds 3 through 10 is what ends the planet. Gravity is not the force keeping you on the ground. It is the only thing keeping the Earth from detonating itself. Henry Cavendish figured out in 1798 that the Earth's average density is 5.5 grams per cubic centimeter. That is nearly twice the density of the granite under your feet. The only way to get that number is if the core is made of something far denser than rock. Compressed iron and nickel, squeezed to nearly double its normal density by the weight of everything sitting above it. The inner core sits under pressure exceeding 360 gigapascals. That is 3.6 million times the air pressure at sea level. The rock and metal at that depth are not solid in any way you would recognize. They behave like a compressed spring, storing an enormous amount of elastic strain energy. Gravity is the hydraulic press holding that spring down. Remove the press for 10 seconds. That stored energy has nowhere to go except outward. The core begins elastic relaxation, a volumetric expansion of roughly 5%. And the seismic waves that generates travel through the mantle at up to 13 kilometers per second. The crust does not bend, it fractures. And that is only what happens underground. The atmosphere is already gone. Second one, the air around you is no longer bound to the planet. It expands into the vacuum of space at supersonic speed. The pressure drops from 101 kilopascals to near zero in less than 2 seconds. Your eardrums rupture instantly, not from a loud noise, from the pressure differential alone. Second 2. The boiling point of water is no longer 100 degrees Celsius. At 0 atmospheres of pressure, water boils at 0 degrees. The surface layer of every ocean, lake, and river on Earth undergoes explosive flash boiling. Your blood does not boil inside your body. Your circulatory system is a closed, pressurized loop, but any exposed moisture on your skin, in your eyes, in your lungs, begins to vaporize immediately. Second 3. Every sealed container on the planet fails. Double-paned windows, soda bottles, airplane fuselages, scuba tanks. All of them explode outward as the internal pressure seeks equilibrium with the vacuum. The atmosphere has already escaped. What remains is a planet with no air, no pressure, and a surface that is beginning to fracture from below. The fracture you see on the surface is a symptom. The cause is 5,150 kilometers below you. The inner core, compressed to half its uncompressed volume by 3 million atmospheres of gravitational pressure, begins elastic relaxation. It expands by approximately 5%. That expansion is not gentle. It generates compressional seismic waves that travel through the mantle at 13 kilometers per second. These are not earthquakes as you know them. They are the sound of a planet uncoiling. When those waves reach the lithosphere, the crust does not shake, it splits. Every major fault line on Earth, the San Andreas, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the Ring of Fire, ruptures simultaneously. Magma reservoirs that were held in place by gravitational confinement erupt as supersonic jets. Those jets do not flow. In a vacuum, molten rock flash freezes at the surface, while the interior remains liquid. The eruptions create towering spires of glassy basalt that shatter under their own weight. At the equator, the Earth's surface is moving at 465 meters per second. Without gravity to curve your path into an orbit, you would expect to fly off tangentially into space. but the ground beneath you is expanding upward at seismic velocities, up to 8 kilometers per second. The crust rises faster than you can drift away. You do not escape into the void. You are crushed between expanding tectonic plates and the debris of your own civilization falling back from the sky. By second 5, the Earth is no longer a sphere. It is an expanding cloud of fractured crust, boiling mantle, and vaporized oceans. The atmosphere is lost. The magnetic field, generated by the motion of the liquid outer core, begins to collapse as the core's convection patterns are disrupted by the expansion. Earth is now unprotected from solar radiation, and the 10 seconds are not even half over. Second 7. The planet is now a debris field. The largest crustal fragments, chunks of continental plate hundreds of kilometers across, are drifting apart at equatorial velocities of 465 meters per second. The gaps between them expose the raw upper mantle. Peridotite rock that has not seen the vacuum of space in 4.5 billion years is now flash vaporizing at its exposed surface, while the interior remains at 1,300 degrees Celsius. At exactly 10 seconds, gravity returns. Every fragment of crust, every cubic kilometer of vaporized ocean, every particle of atmosphere that has not yet escaped Earth's gravitational sphere of influence is pulled back toward the center of mass simultaneously. The kinetic energy of that re-engagement is 3.3 times 10 to the 31st joules. That is 100,000 times the kinetic energy released by the Chicxulub asteroid, the impact that ended the non-avian dinosaurs. All of it converts to heat on contact. The outer 15 kilometers of the Earth's crust melts completely. Every mountain range, every ocean trench, every city, every fossil, every geological record accumulated over 4.5 billion years is liquefied in a single impact event. The surface of the Earth becomes a uniform magma ocean with no topography. A global magnitude 11 seismic event rings through the core and continues for centuries. The atmosphere does not return. The oceans do not return. Whatever air and water mass escaped Earth's gravitational pull during the 10-second window is carried away by the solar wind within decades. What remains is a molten, airless rock orbiting the sun at the correct distance for liquid water, water that no longer exists on its surface. The magnetic field, dependent on organized convection in the outer core, does not re-establish for millions of years. During that time, the solar wind strips whatever thin outgassing the cooling crust produces. Gravity is not a passive background condition. It is an active mechanical constraint on a pressurized geological system that stores energy equivalent to trillions of nuclear warheads. The Earth is stable not because it is inert, but because gravity never stops working. Henry Cavendish measured the force holding all of this together in 1798 using 2 lead spheres in a quiet room. The number he got was accurate to within 1%. What the geophysical models cannot yet resolve is whether a 10-second suspension would be sufficient to trigger irreversible core convection collapse, or whether the dynamo would eventually self-organize again over geological time. That question has not been answered. The variables involved require a planetary scale experiment that, fortunately, no one has run. The next question worth asking is what happens if gravity does not switch off completely, but simply weakens by 10%. The numbers on that scenario are less dramatic. The conclusion is not. That is a story for another Logic Nook.